The wrong fuel injector cleaner doesn't just waste money. It can quietly eat through sensors, clog injectors, and wreck your engine from the inside out. Most drivers have no idea they're pouring in the problem. In this video, I'll expose 9 popular cleaners that do real damage, and 3 that actually save your engine. Let's talk first about the ones you should never touch, starting with a product that built its reputation decades ago but hides chemistry your modern engine will regret. Number 9. Berryman B12 ChemTool Fuel System Cleaner. At first glance, Berryman B12 ChemTool looks like an old-school miracle in a can. The label leans on high-energy solvent technology, promising to dissolve gum, varnish, and residues that slow engines down. And to be fair, on a carburetor or motorcycle that has been sitting with stale fuel, it can feel like magic. That quick jolt of cleaning is why this product built a loyal following decades ago. But here is the catch. The science inside the can has not really changed since the carburetor era. Instead of modern detergents like polyethylamine, the safety data sheet reveals a heavy dose of toluene, acetone, methanol, and methyl ethyl ketone. These are aggressive, fast-evaporating solvents. They blast through varnish, but they cannot survive the 1800-degree heat inside modern injectors or combustion chambers. In other words, they flash and rinse, but they do not scrub the hard carbon that robs today's engines of performance. That mismatch matters. Gasoline direct injection engines build stubborn carbon on valves and injector tips, and mechanics often charge $500 to $1,000 for walnut blasting because no in-tank solvent can remove it. Meanwhile, pouring methanol and aromatics into your tank adds risks for seals, oxygen sensors, and catalytic converters if you overdose. So while B12 is great for reviving small engines or old carb systems, it is the wrong tool for routine injector cleaning in modern cars. Some cleaners stop at injectors. The next one dares to promise it can sweep through your entire exhaust system. Number 8. Cataclean Fuel and Exhaust System Cleaner. Cataclean is marketed as the bottle that does it all. Cleaning injectors, valves, oxygen sensors, even the catalytic converter itself. The promise is bold. Pour it into a low tank, drive hard, and supposedly slash emissions by up to 50% while smoothing idle and restoring power. For drivers staring down a failed smog test or a check engine light, that sounds like a miracle fix. But the safety data sheet tells a very different story. Cataclean is not built on modern polyethylamine detergents that survive combustion and attack hard carbon. Instead, it is a hot solvent blend, xylene as the backbone, with acetone, isopropanol, and kerosene-range hydrocarbons. Those chemicals are aggressive enough to dissolve varnish, but they burn off long before they can clean the injector tips or piston crowns where the toughest deposits form. That mismatch explains why many drivers only see a short reprieve. Forums are full of posts where a P0420 catalyst code clears for a few days, only to return once the ECU finishes its next cycle. What likely happened is that the solvent changed combustion slightly or loosened residues just long enough to trick the sensors. But once the vapor faded, the underlying catalyst or sensor issue was still there. At $30 to $40 a bottle, Cataclean may buy time, but it will not rebuild a depleted converter or truly scrub injectors. For long-term results, drivers are better off with a genuine high PEA cleaner and consistent top-tier fuel. Number 7. Ethanol-based cleaners. Ethanol-based fuel injector. Cleaners sound convincing because ethanol is already blended into modern gasoline. Labels that highlight ethanol treatment make it feel like you are adding extra cleaning muscle to your tank. The pitch is simple. Ethanol dissolves residues, manages water, and boosts octane, so a cleaner built on alcohol must be a smart upgrade. Here is the hidden truth. Ethanol is not a detergent, and it does not survive the heat of combustion to break down stubborn carbon deposits. The chemistries proven to clean modern injectors and combustion chambers are polyethylamines, or PEA detergents, which remain stable at nearly 2,000 degrees Fahrenheit. Studies show PEA can strip away carbon and even lower an engine's octane requirement after a single treated tank. Ethanol, by contrast, burns off long before it reaches those deposits. There is another problem. Ethanol loves water. In storage or seasonal vehicles, excess moisture can trigger phase separation, where ethanol and water sink to the bottom of the tank. The remaining gasoline loses octane, and that can lead to knock overheated catalysts or even piston damage. Adding more ethanol through a cleaner does nothing to change that physics. The kicker is cost. Drivers buy these bottles to avoid expensive repairs, but the risks they introduce, oxygen sensors at $400, injectors near $900, catalytic converters over $2,000, make the gamble hard to justify. Ethanol is already in your gas. Paying extra for more of it is not cleaning. It is a distraction. Before we move on, subscribe for more deep dives into the hidden world of cars. We show you what actually works so you can skip the expensive guesswork. Number 6. Kerosene-based cleaners. On the shelf, kerosene-based fuel injector cleaners look convincing. Clear liquid, petroleum smell, and big promises about restoring power. But check the safety data sheet and you will see what they really are. Bottles of lamp oil dressed up as high-tech chemistry. Kerosene shows up under different names like hydro-treated light distillates or straight-run kerosene. It is a middle distillate sitting between gasoline and diesel in the refinery. That matters because kerosene has an extremely low octane rating. Pouring it into your tank actually dilutes the gasoline, lowering octane and forcing the engine computer to pull timing. The result? Less power and efficiency in the very tank you thought you were cleaning. The second problem is that kerosene is not a detergent. It can thin out gum in an old carburetor, but it cannot survive the heat of combustion or chemically break apart stubborn carbon. That is why true cleaners advertise polyetheramine, PEA, on their labels. PEA is a high-temperature detergent proven to dissolve injector and chamber deposits where kerosene simply burns away. There are risks too. Loosened debris can end up clogging injector screens or fouling oxygen sensors. If that triggers a failed catalytic converter, you could be staring at a $2,000 repair. Even a single oxygen sensor runs around $400. Suddenly, that $7 bottle does not look so cheap. The takeaway is simple. If the SDS reads like kerosene, skip it. Real injector cleaners proudly name polyetheramine because that is the chemistry that actually works. Kerosene hides behind technical names. The next one hides behind a friendlier promise: lubrication. Number 5. Lucas Fuel Treatment. Lucas Fuel Treatment looks like a multitasker. The label calls it an upper cylinder lubricant with injector cleaners. To most drivers, that sounds like a 2-for-1 deal: lubrication plus cleaning. But dig into the paperwork, and the story changes fast. The safety data sheet lists the product as mostly heavy petroleum distillates. That is mineral oil, not a detergent. The technical data sheet reinforces it, boasting that the formula contains no solvents or alcohols, and instead highlights its high flash point and viscosity. In plain terms, this is oil in a bottle, not a modern cleaner. Why does that matter? Because what actually scrubs carbon from injectors and combustion chambers is detergent chemistry, especially polyetheramine. PEA survives high heat and chemically lifts deposits, which is why automakers and additive suppliers recommend it. Oil alone cannot do that. At best, it lubricates. At worst, it just adds more residue to burn. Lucas fans sometimes claim smoother running, but even they admit the formula has no PEA. Mechanics on forums often clarify that Lucas's deep clean is the real cleaner, while this fuel treatment is primarily a lubricant. Confusing the two is common, and it keeps the myth alive. For today's engines already running on top-tier gasoline with federally mandated detergents, pouring in extra oil is unnecessary. Worse, burned oil fractions can contribute to ash that slowly loads catalytic converters or gasoline particulate filters. With replacements costing $2,000 to $3,000, that is an expensive trade-off for a placebo effect. Number 4. Win's Fuel Injector Cleaner. Win's sells its injector cleaner as a simple pour-in fix. One bottle for 20 gallons of gasoline. The label looks reassuring, but the fine print tells a narrower story. The formula relies on solvents and a detergent called polyisobutylene-amine, or PIBA, which is designed mainly to keep port injection valves tidy, not to dig out the heavy carbon that plagues modern direct injection engines. That keep clean versus clean up split matters. PIBA is good at prevention in cooler areas like intake valves, but it cannot survive the extreme heat inside a combustion chamber. By contrast, polyetheramine, PEA, is the chemistry documented in industry studies for actually dissolving baked-on deposits in injectors and chambers. If your car has rough idle or misfire codes from hard deposits, a PIBA blend will rarely deliver. The safety data sheet for WINS lists aromatic solvents like xylene and naphthalene, chemicals closer to paint thinner than to a purpose-built detergent. They can thin varnish, but also dilute octane, and if overused, they risk stressing oxygen sensors or catalytic converters. With replacements running hundreds to thousands of dollars, that is not a gamble most drivers want. Bottom line, WINS Fuel Injector Cleaner is not junk, but it is the wrong tool for modern deposit problems. Using the wrong tool costs more than it saves. And the next bottle proves just how expensive that mistake can be. Number 3. Goomout High Mileage Cleaner. The label says High Mileage Fuel Injector Cleaner, but the lab sheet tells a different story. The safety data sheet lists mostly petroleum distillates with a splash of naphthalene. What it does not list is the heavy hitter, polyethyramine or PA. The detergent Goomout itself admits is the chemistry proven to scrub carbon from injectors and combustion chambers. On Goomout's own ingredient page, the brand is blunt. PEA is the cleaner that actually dissolves stubborn deposits. It even names which products contain it: Regain, All-in-One, and others. Notice what is missing: this high-mileage injector cleaner. In other words, the bottle that looks built for engines past 75,000 miles is not the one carrying the detergent you actually need. Instead, you are pouring in refined kerosene and aromatic solvents. They can thin gum, but they do not survive the heat of a direct injected engine where the real problems live. Injector tip coking and chamber carbon are hardened deposits that distort spray and trigger misfires. Solvent-heavy formulas rarely touch them. The cost of getting this wrong is not pocket change. New injectors often run $750 to $970, and catalytic converter jobs easily pass $2,000. Buying the wrong Goomout bottle means you are paying for a label, not for the chemistry your high-mileage engine truly needs. Number 2. Prestone Fuel Injector Cleaner. At first glance, Prestone's Fuel Injector Cleaner looks like an easy fix. A trusted brand, a simple bottle, and claims of restoring performance with just one tank. It seems like cheap insurance for any driver. But the paperwork tells another story. The safety data sheet lists the formula as mostly mineral spirits, basically paint thinner, with small amounts of aromatic solvents like trimethylbenzene, xylene, cumane, and even naphthalene. What you will not find is polyethyramine, the detergent proven to survive combustion and actually break down carbon on injector tips and inside combustion chambers. That distinction is huge. Solvents can rinse away soft varnish in a carburetor or dissolve light gum in fuel lines. But the hard, baked-on carbon that plagues modern injectors and direct injection engines requires real detergents. PEA is the chemistry designed for that job. Prestone's cleaner does not declare any. Fans may point to one-tank cleanup claims or even the octane booster variant that advertises a 5-point increase. The fine print reveals that 5 points usually means just half an octane number, not a miracle jump. For drivers, the cost of misplaced trust is steep. Replacing injectors often runs $750 to $970, and catalytic converters can exceed $2,000. A bottle of mineral spirits is not the protection your wallet or your engine really needs. Number 1. Seafoam Motor Treatment. Seafoam motor treatment is everywhere. Auto stores, truck stops, even boat shops. The label promises it all. Cleans injectors, quiets lifters, stabilizes fuel, and even lubricates upper cylinders. For drivers staring down injector problems, that sounds like a miracle in a can. But dig into the safety sheets and you find something different. Seafoam is mostly petroleum distillates, isopropyl alcohol, and pale oil. What you will not see is polyethyramine, the detergent proven to survive combustion and actually dissolve baked-on carbon inside injectors and chambers. That matters because modern injector deposits are not soft varnish. They are rock-hard carbon created by heat and pressure. Solvents can reliquefy gum and old fuel, which makes seafoam useful for storage or carburetors, but they do not chemically detach those stubborn deposits. The viral smoke show you see when seafoam is sprayed into an intake, that is vaporized oil and debris burning off, not proof of deep cleaning. Mechanics often warn that it can even foul plugs or stress a weak catalytic converter. For real injector cleaning, chemistry counts, and seafoam, by its own admission, does not contain it. Now that we've seen plenty of bottles that promise miracles but deliver little, let's flip the script and look at ones that actually earns its reputation. Number 1. Redline SI1 Complete Fuel System Cleaner. This isn't your average gas tank tonic. Redline SI1 is built around polyether amine, a detergent that survives combustion heat long enough to break apart carbon where it actually matters. Injector tips, intake valves in port-injected engines, and even the upper chamber. Older safety data sheets revealed something rare. Up to half the bottle by weight was active PEA. That is far more concentrated than most retail cleaners, and it explains why owners often see real results in just one tank. Instead of just thinning varnish, SI1 chemically dissolves hard deposits, restoring spray patterns and smoothing idle. Mechanics recommend it when a car shows hesitation, light knock, or rough running, symptoms tied to dirty injectors. Drivers even report mileage bouncing back after a treatment, sometimes enough to offset the cost of the bottle in a single tank. In a sea of overhyped solvents, this is one of the few cleaners that actually earns its reputation. Real results in one tank are rare. The next cleaner takes that idea even further, with claims bold enough to make mechanics pay attention. Number 2. AmSoil PI Performance Improver. AmSoil PI has a reputation in mechanic circles as the serious dose cleaner. It is not marketed as a casual maintenance additive, but as a one-tank reset when deposits are stealing power and efficiency. That pitch alone makes it stand out in a crowded shelf of vague promises. What gives it credibility is the chemistry. PI leans on polyether amine, the detergent designed to survive combustion heat and actually break apart hard carbon on injectors and in the chamber. AmSoil's own testing claims it can restore up to 14% lost horsepower and bring direct injection injectors back to full flow after a single tank. Owners often describe it the same way. Pour in a bottle, fill up with 20 to 30 gallons, and by the end of the tank, the car idles smoother, pulls harder, and sometimes even needs less octane to keep knockaway. That means real money saved if you have been stuck buying premium to hide ping. For drivers who want proof they can feel, PI is one of the rare cleaners that consistently delivers. Number 3. BG44 K Fuel System Cleaner. If you ask a dealership tech what they grab when a car is failing emissions or stumbling at idle, BG44K is usually the answer. This cleaner has built its reputation not through flashy ads, but through decades of being the one-tank fix in professional service bays. The secret is its chemistry. BG44K is loaded with polyether amine, the detergent stable enough to survive combustion and actually dissolve the rock-hard carbon that gums injectors and chambers. Instead of just thinning fuel, it attacks the deposits that rob engines of power and efficiency. BG recommends pouring an entire can into 13 to 20 gallons of fuel, a strong, deliberate dose. That high concentration is what separates it from weaker cleaners that fizzle out. Within 50 to 100 miles, many drivers notice smoother throttle response, steadier idle, and sometimes even a pass on an emissions retest that had failed before. It is not the cheapest bottle on the shelf, but it often saves hundreds by avoiding injector services or catalytic converter headaches. In one tank, BG44K earns its place on the short list of cleaners that truly work. Now you know which fuel injector cleaners to avoid. Don't stop here. Our next video exposes 19 cheap parts that can silently destroy your engine if ignored. Watch now.